Working as a security guard mainly on night shifts, you get to see a lot of shit going on. But nothing compared to the things I saw when I worked for Shoe Limited. I'm 58 years old now. What I'm about to tell you happened when I got my newest job. I've always worked as a security guard, janitor, and all those sorts of things. And I didn't finish my studies because I decided to marry my college sweetheart. Man, what a big mistake. Anyway, after marrying her, she gave me a boy. People would think that is all that there is good, but I never wished to have a child, and eventually 9 years later I discovered my wife and mother of my kid had always cheated on me with her own cousin. I felt alone and miserable, not for losing my wife and my son, but because I felt that many years had been wasted. My family always opposed to the marriage with that woman and to me dropping out of college. And I had lost all my friends and family because of that union. So anyway, I fell into a heavy depression that led me to substance abuse for many years. And I took another bad decision when I was in my 30s, and I ended up marrying a junkie. And 2 years after being together, we split for good. And luckily for me, once I turned 40, I met this awesome woman called Patricia. She's the best person I've ever met and has helped with absolutely everything in my life. Patricia and I got married and still live together till this day. She works as a cosmetologist, and as mentioned before, I've always done security and cleaning jobs. Though I didn't earn a lot, I always had enough money for our needs and an occasional treat. However, it came to our realization that I could be earning more if I worked the night shifts. And that's when Patricia tried to look for a new job as a stylist for the theater during the night, and I left my job as the mall security guard and started looking for a job. In less than a week, a company hired me, and they were called Shoe Limited, and they seemed pretty laid back. I didn't even go for an interview. I just sent my resume, and then I got an almost immediate call from them. The company was gigantic. It was weird that living in the same town my whole life, I never saw them. But I guess it made sense because they're located in the outskirts of our town. I didn't do any research on the company because I wasn't good with technology at the time, and neither was Patricia. And we were just excited that we both now seemed to have good jobs and lots of time to be together. When I arrived to the company for my first day, I was placed in a room with at least 10 other guys. None of us were wearing uniforms or suits like everybody else around did, so I assumed we were all there trying to go for the same job. And a young man called Joaquin approached me. He told me he got a phone call telling him he had gotten a job in here, the same way I did. And as Joaquin and I were speaking, someone came into the room. It was an old man in a uniform. He introduced himself as the security guard manager, and he let us know that 10 of us had been hired. Well, that surprised me a lot. I've never been in a company that hired so many people at the same time. But once again, this place was huge. It was the size of a university, so I imagined they needed many employees. Giles, the manager, gave us all the instructions we needed. Some people then arrived with our uniforms and weapons. I was surprised that they gave us guns, because many places during the time were hesitant about using them, and they were using different weapons. In total, we were given our jumpsuit, boots, a security guard baton, pepper spray, a gun, a flashlight, and our heated vests. Everyone tried their stuff on, and to our surprise, each uniform fit each person perfectly. And the majority of the guys didn't find it weird. They barely paid attention to that detail, but for me, it felt pretty strange. And all 10 of us were completely different in age, height, and body type. How could they have known our sizes? And I wanted to ask the manager some questions, but before I had the chance of doing so, he made an announcement. It was regarding our payment. He told us we were going to get paid $700 per week. Man, that was a lot. Normally, as security guards or janitor, cleaners, what have you, we don't get paid much at all. My mind went completely blank once they announced the payment, and I started speaking to the other guys and completely forgot the manager was there. When I finally remembered what I was going to speak about with the manager, I noticed that he had left. At the time of our meeting, our schedule was given to us, and it was actually pretty good. We had work 5 days a week. Each shift was 7 hours. Shift A was from 5 p.m. to midnight. Shift B was from midnight to 7 in the morning. At the start of each month, we got told which days we were going to work and which shift we were taking. It was a very good deal, and I would have been a fool if I didn't take it. I had started to work. I had been chosen to do Shift A, and Joaquin and I had been selected partners, which was great. He seemed like a nice kid. And the factory had 7 different buildings, and we were selected to work in building number 7, better known as the warehouse. And our job basically consisted of making sure who was getting in and out of the building and writing their names. And basically, standing by the doors, perhaps walking around the building once every 20 minutes to make sure nobody was trying to get in there. It was pretty damn boring, but it was alright. And for 6 months, Joaquin and I did the same, working the 5 to midnight. Stand or sit there, play cards, eat our food and snacks, and listen to some music. And even though I could have been his dad, I enjoyed spending time with him. It was all the same routine, until we eventually got moved to the midnight until 7 a.m. shift. And to our surprise, Shift B had way more movement than Shift A. We did not know why, but people came to visit more the later it was. Joaquin and I started wondering, why did people come at that time? We also spoke about how neither of us knew exactly what the factory produced. The next day, after speaking to Joaquin about our doubts, I arranged an appointment with the manager. The appointment was immediate, which was very good, and I asked him some questions about the company, and he told me they did different products. However, most of them were confidential and couldn't be spoken about. He said people did come a lot during the night, but that it was also that way during daytime. I wasn't completely satisfied with all the information because I wanted to know more, but there's nothing else I could have done. He wasn't going to tell me what was up. The same day after the appointment, I had to start working on my shift, and I told Joaquin about my encounter, and he came to the conclusion, being a security guard outside, we weren't going to get all the information. Joaquin told me he sometimes spoke to 2 other guards that got hired around the same time we did, and how they had a plan to get inside and check what was going on, but they needed some help. They needed to switch shifts for 1 day. And at first, I thought the idea was just terrible, and it almost felt like we were betraying the company. And regardless of the information the company hid from us, getting in there was almost a dirty move. And I refused at first, but after thinking it through, I told Joaquin I agreed only under the condition that the 2 of us would be clear if the other security guards were caught. The deal was us taking Shift A for a day so that the guys could take advantage of the dark of the night to get in there. We security guards had the keys, so it was actually easy to get in. And one of the guys apparently was an expert in breaking into places and could crack down codes if needed. And the other one could manipulate the alarm system and cameras. They were going to break in, and check what was going on the inside. And the guys were also the guards of building number 7. And after everything, they were going to tell us what they have seen. They wisely picked the best time of the night when no one was coming over. As Joaquin and I returned to our normal shift a couple of days later, we had to see the guys. However, instead of the 2 of them, there was only one. The nicest one of the 2. And he looked terrible, as if he hadn't slept in days. We asked him how he was and what had happened when they tried to check the place, but he just told us everything in there was normal. But there was something about him. I just knew that he was lying. And I asked him where his friend was, and he said his friend didn't work there anymore. And we asked him if they got caught and if he was fired. And suddenly, he screamed at us. "He's gone, okay?" is what he said. Joaquin and I, well, we left with a very uneasy sensation. We knew something had happened. We let it go for a couple of days, then we decided to ask him again. And after all, they had promised us to tell every detail. When we arrived, the guy, Ryan his name was, well, he was looking a lot worse. The bags under his eyes were more prominent, and he was starting to look skinnier. Joaquin asked him if he was okay, but all he did was ignore us, sign the shift change paper, and then he left. And as he was walking away, I noticed he had left his phone on the chair where he sat outside. I saw the phone before Joaquin did, and quickly grabbed it and hid it in my pocket. And I acted like if nothing had happened and didn't mention anything to him. And Ryan didn't seem to have noticed he was missing his phone because he never came back for it. My plan was simple. I was going to check what was on the phone, and the next day I was going to return it to Ryan and act it as if I hadn't seen anything. And I knew it was a shitty move, but it had to be done. His phone was the only possibility to know what was inside the building. After I finished my shift, I went home and checked out his phone. As expected, I found something there. Something I would have rather not seen. It was a video of them going inside the place. They have recorded everything. And in the recording, you could see them entering different areas until they got to this one place. It was a giant door that needed a code, and they managed to get in. And as they opened the door, there was a hall with different doors and windows. Each door and window corresponded to a room, and the doors had a bed and bathroom. It looked similar to a cell, but with different security and better looking. And most of them were empty, with the exception of 2 of them. The first creature that could be seen looked just like you would expect an alien would look like. He was tall, height similar to a human, skinny, and he was so bright. He called Ryan and Dylan by their names. They seemed impressed, particularly Ryan, and Dylan wanted to walk further to where the other creature was, but as he started to walk, the alien spoke again. "No," he said. "You shall not go there, for if you do, it will be the end." And you could tell Ryan, who was the one using the camera, stopped, but Dylan didn't. He kept walking and knocked on the door of the other creature's cell. And the next thing you could notice was a very sharp growl, and then Dylan collapsing to the floor. And unfortunately, that's when the video stopped. I was now more confused than ever before. What the hell had I just seen? What did it all mean? And what happened to Dylan? I rubbed my eyes and watched the video again and again, and at first I was hoping I was wrong, but after an hour of doing so, I was sure that this was real. I fell asleep on the couch until I was awakened by my wife. My wife asked me whose cell phone it was, and I had to lie to her, telling her it belonged to Joaquin. We spent the rest of the day together until the both of us left to go to our jobs. As I arrived, I saw Ryan, and I knew I had to confront him. I purposely arrived earlier so that Joaquin wouldn't be there, and I said hi to Ryan, and he replied very weakly. I then told him if he had lost something, and as he looked at me, I showed him his phone. His tired brown eyes got bigger. "Oh, so it was you who had it," he said. "I assume you have questions, but I'm no one to answer. All I know is the same you probably saw," he continued. And I asked him what had happened to Dylan. And after that, he made a long pause. "Listen, can we talk about this later?" he asked, to which I agreed, and we arranged to speak during the weekend. On Saturday, we were both free and met at this local coffee place. He told me what had happened, but he didn't tell me more information than what I learned from the video. It was just the same. He had no idea why Dylan collapsed. However, he did know what had happened after. As soon as Dylan touched the floor and the video stopped recording, Dylan disintegrated. It sounded crazy, and I refused to believe it at first, but Ryan seemed like he was saying the truth. And I asked Ryan to help me get in there. He refused at first, stating that he did not want to go back inside. And I begged him to help me, even saying all he needed to do was to help me avoid the cameras. Anyway, he ended up accepting with one condition. I couldn't go alone. I had to take somebody. So during my next shift, I told Joaquin what had happened. He laughed. He didn't believe me at first, but as soon as our shift ended, I showed him the video. And he was surprised by what he saw, but he wasn't afraid. And when I asked him if he would join me, he said hell yeah. So, with Dylan's help, Joaquin and I easily got inside. However, opening other gates was quite hard because they needed a code. But we had that information from one of the videos Ryan recorded when he was there. When we got to the room and we saw the alien, Joaquin literally ran closer to him. I, wanting to know all the details, asked the alien what happened to Dylan. And the alien said the other creature who was in the room couldn't be looked at in the eyes. If someone looked into his eyes, they'd be teleported to his planet. The creature explained to us that in this place, they kept different types of weird discoveries, including other life forms. The creature asked us for help in order to escape. Joaquin immediately accepted. However, I didn't answer immediately. "If you help me, I'll protect both of you," the alien said. "All you need to do is grab the keys from the manager. Wait and see. I'll make your dreams come reality." We asked the creature to prove his powers, but said he couldn't because they had constructed something in the place that blocked him from using his powers. It all sounded weird to me. I did not want to be involved with these things, I just needed answers. And I finally convinced Joaquin to go and leave as the alien stared at us. "You should have helped," were his last words to us. 2 months during a night shift. I noticed Joaquin didn't arrive. And I also noticed people seemed to be going in and out of the building every 3 minutes. It was crazy. I asked the manager about it, but he just answered saying that they had lost something. And as soon as he said that, I knew something was going on with the alien and Joaquin. And once I finished my shift, I called Ryan, but he wasn't picking up. I drove to his house and found the police there. They didn't let me in, but I managed to speak to his mom. And his mom told me what had happened. Something the police didn't believe her, but I did, for I knew it was possible. Ryan had disintegrated. I went home that night and wrote this because all I'm thinking is that this is part of the alien's revenge, and that I might be next. I told my wife that if something happened to me, she should publish this. But I'm probably overreacting. Hopefully, it won't be necessary.